she's being told X, Y, and Z. And I don't think much of it's sticking. I mean, she just wants to.
It's very important to pursue your passions, and if you're doing that, the risks are often not as great as they seem to be. So for me, when I thought about, leaving
Sobrang di ko pa mapaniwala. Maraming salamat sa suporta. Sana patuloy yung
She keeps hearing all kinds of advice and instructions from different directions, but honestly very little of it is truly sinking in because what matters most to her is following what she loves. Chasing your passion is essential, and when you are genuinely committed to what you love, the dangers often turn out to be far smaller than they appear at first glance. That is how I felt when I seriously considered stepping away from what I thought was the safe path and moving towards something uncertain but meaningful. Now the painful truth behind Eala's tears has finally come into the light, and what her coach disclosed changes the entire story in a way nobody expected. Just a short time ago, viewers around the world watched in stunned silence as Eala, widely seen as the pride of Philippine tennis and a symbol of hope for millions, sat in front of a wall of cameras with red, swollen eyes and offered an emotional apology to a nation she believed she had disappointed. She described herself as a letdown, and people witnessed a national icon breaking down live in front of them. But nearly everything people assumed about that match turned out to be incorrect. Only minutes after Alex exited the press room, the doors opened once again and the real version of events emerged, revealing a truth that was both heartbreaking and deeply inspiring, a truth that completely reshapes how that moment should be understood. Eala did not lose because she lacked ability, and she did not fall apart because of pressure. She was defeated on the scoreboard because she was battling something invisible to everyone watching. What her coach later revealed is powerful enough to break your heart and then rebuild it with admiration. This is the real story of the Philippine Women's Open, the so-called loss that was not truly a loss, and the deeper reality behind Eala's performance. To fully grasp the magnitude of what happened less than an hour ago, we need to go back and rebuild the context, because this was far more than just another small ITF tournament flying under the radar. This was the Philippine Women's Open, and for the first time ever, a WTA 125 event was being held on Philippine soil. For years, fans watched Eala's journey from a promising child to a rising professional star. She left her family at a young age to train in Spain at the Rafa Nadal Academy, captured a US Open Junior title, worked relentlessly through the rankings, pushed her way into the top tier, and became a shining source of national pride for a country eager to see a global tennis champion emerge. So when it was officially announced that she would finally compete in a professional tournament at home in Manila, the excitement was not merely large, it was overwhelming. Tickets sold out almost instantly. The Rizal Memorial Tennis Center transformed into a roaring arena filled with drums, flags, chants, and anticipation, with spectators expecting a crowning moment. The narrative seemed pre-written before the opening serve was even struck, because the returning star was supposed to claim her throne on home ground. However, standing across the net was a serious threat in the form of Camila Osorio, the Colombian standout and former top 35 competitor known for her relentless baseline game, fierce consistency, and refusal to give away points cheaply. She did not travel to Manila for appearances or celebration. She arrived with the clear intention of winning. Inside Alex's camp, behind the confident smiles and polished media messaging, there were already signs that something was wrong, and it was more serious than anyone publicly admitted. Observant viewers began to notice it during the second round, when there was a subtle limp between points and a slight hesitation whenever Alex pushed off her left foot. At first, people dismissed it as nerves, tightness, or minor stiffness, assuming it would fade as the match progressed. She is young and resilient, people said, and she will loosen up. But as the quarterfinal round approached, it became increasingly obvious that this was not random or insignificant. Quiet conversations started circulating behind the scenes that something was not right with the golden star of Philippine tennis, and soon the world would learn just how severe the situation really was. The quarterfinal match began under intense Manila heat, with humidity hanging heavy in the air and expectations weighing even heavier on the moment. When Eala stepped onto the court, the noise from the crowd was thunderous, with her name echoing throughout the stadium as fans believed they were about to witness history unfold through a hometown triumph. Yet from the earliest games, the expected storyline started to fall apart. Osorio competes like a hunter who senses vulnerability, and the instant she recognized even a slight physical limitation, she exploited it without hesitation. She forced Alex to run corner to corner through punishing rallies, mixing delicate drop shots with deep, looping balls that demanded repeated bursts of speed and abrupt directional changes. Alex appeared half a step slower than usual, and the explosive first movement that normally defines her style was noticeably missing. Her signature backhand down the line, typically sharp and precise, began drifting just wide by narrow margins. The audience tried to energize her with every point she captured, erupting with encouragement, but the discomfort on her face was impossible to ignore. This expression was not simply the frustration of losing points, it was the look of someone fighting through physical distress. That discomfort soon grew into visible pain. During the first set, which she dropped by a 6-4 score, there were repeated moments when she winced immediately after serving and glanced toward her player box, not with irritation but with urgency and strain. Her team could do nothing but watch, unable to intervene, as their competitor pushed herself through what looked medically unsustainable. Osorio maintained relentless pressure, driving shot after shot deep into the corners and forcing Alex to chase and repeatedly load weight onto the compromised foot. A creeping sense of unease spread among viewers because this outcome did not match the script people expected. This was not supposed to happen here at home in front of her supporters, but tennis is indifferent to storylines and sentiment, and it rewards only the player who performs better on that day. Even so, the second set turned into a test of endurance and determination. After falling behind by a set against an opponent who clearly had the physical edge that day, Alex fought back with remarkable resolve. She broke Osorio's serve and the stadium exploded with renewed belief as the score evened. For a brief stretch, it felt like sheer determination might still be enough to change the outcome. At 4 games all, the critical moment arrived. Alex sprinted forward to reach yet another drop shot, one of many Osorio had used to stretch the court. She planted her foot to change direction and the entire stadium seemed to freeze with her. She did not fall, but she stopped abruptly, and a flash of intense pain crossed her face that was visible even to spectators sitting high above the court. Something had clearly worsened. She lost that point and then the game, and shortly afterward, despite saving match points and despite the crowd begging for one last surge, the match ended with another 6-4 set. Osorio advanced and the dream appeared to end on the spot. The quiet that followed felt heavy and surreal, filled not only with disappointment but confusion. Many spectators felt the finish did not make sense, as if Alex had not been able to show her true level. Fans left the venue in tears, frustration and disbelief, wondering how such a long-awaited moment could conclude in that way. What nobody realized at that time was that she had just delivered one of the bravest performances of her career, not measured by the scoreline but by raw courage. Roughly half an hour later, Eala entered the press conference room wearing her national team jacket, yet she somehow appeared smaller and more fragile than anyone had ever seen her look before. Her eyes were still red, and although the makeup team had tried to hide it, the traces of tears were impossible to fully cover. She took her seat, adjusted the microphone in front of her, and before the first reporter could even finish asking a question, her composure collapsed. The quote from that moment has already been shared widely across media platforms, but hearing it in full context makes it even more heartbreaking. Through tears, she said she felt she had disappointed the people who always believed in her. She said she felt she had let her country down. Think about the emotional burden carried by a 20-year-old athlete speaking those words in public. She did not blame the conditions, the scheduling, or her opponent. She did not offer excuses or deflect responsibility. Instead, she accepted all of it herself and described the result as her personal failure, explaining that she gave everything she had but it still was not enough on that day. She said she wanted to bring home a trophy for her supporters and make the nation proud, and she believed she had fallen short of that goal. She never mentioned the extreme weather, the physical discomfort, or any questionable moments during the match. She chose to shoulder the entire weight of the loss and allowed viewers to assume she had simply cracked under pressure and could not handle the magnitude of the occasion. In that instant, Eala placed her own reputation at risk to protect everyone else connected to the event, including organizers, sponsors, her coaching staff, and even her opponent. She preferred to be judged as mentally fragile rather than expose what she was truly dealing with physically. Within minutes, online reactions turned harsh. Social media filled with criticism from people who had never competed at a serious level but felt confident making judgments. Some labeled her overrated, others called her mentally soft, and many claimed she could not perform when the pressure was highest. The negativity spread quickly. The same voices that had been cheering for her less than an hour earlier now questioned her toughness and twisted her apology into supposed evidence that she was not built for big moments. While Alex was fighting back tears in front of the cameras, her coaching team stood quietly near the back of the room. Her head coach looked visibly shaken, his face tense with emotion and frustration, his hands clenched as he listened. Watching her take all the blame while hiding the truth became too much for him to accept. He had promised her he would remain silent about her condition, and he takes his words seriously, but seeing her emotionally tear herself down in public crossed a line he could not tolerate. After Alex was guided out of the room, still crying, the coach stepped forward without waiting to be invited. He reached for the microphone and revealed information that immediately changed how the entire match should be viewed. Reporters who had already started packing their equipment paused. Some had begun drafting headlines about pressure and disappointment, but they quickly reopened their laptops as his voice cut through the room and demanded attention. He told everyone to sit back down because if they wanted a real story, he was about to give them the truth rather than a convenient narrative. He made it clear he was not angry with Alex, he was angry on her behalf. He said he had just listened to her apology and heard her accept full blame, and he could not allow that version of events to stand unchallenged. Then he looked directly toward the cameras and explained that there was something she had specifically instructed the team not to reveal, even though it changed everything. He stated plainly that she should not have even been walking normally that day, much less competing in a professional tennis match. The room reacted instantly with shock. Journalists scrambled to restart recorders and reposition cameras. The coach then laid out the facts. 3 days earlier during practice, Alex had suffered a grade 2 ligament tear in her ankle. Medical staff advised immediate withdrawal from the tournament. He personally urged her to pull out. Her family also encouraged her to stop and focus on recovery. Imaging scans confirmed the severity of the injury, and her ankle had swollen to nearly twice its usual size. She was spending hours each day in physiotherapy just to manage basic movement and get her foot into a shoe. He explained that the pain level was extreme and that most people with that type of injury would be using crutches rather than competing. To make the reality undeniable, he held up his phone and showed a photo taken earlier that same day. The image displayed an ankle that was badly bruised, heavily wrapped, and visibly swollen. Medical professionals who later reviewed the details said that competing on such an injury was strongly discouraged and carried a serious risk of turning a partial tear into a complete rupture. His voice grew emotional as he described her decision. He said Alex told him that the fans had already bought tickets, families had traveled, and children had come to watch her play. She insisted she would not withdraw. She said that even if she had to drag herself onto the court, she would compete. To make it through the tunnel and onto the playing surface, she received pain management injections, and then she battled for nearly 2 hours against a world-class opponent while effectively playing on one functional leg. The press room became completely silent as the weight of that revelation settled in. The coach emphasized that she did not lose because she lacked courage or mental strength. She lost because her body reached a physical limit it could not push beyond. He described her public apology as one of the most selfless acts he had ever witnessed from an athlete, explaining that she chose to accept blame rather than mention the injury because she did not want sympathy, excuses, or distractions that might overshadow the tournament. He declared firmly that she is not a failure and never should be described that way. He said she is one of the toughest competitors he has coached in his entire career. When people understand the nature of a grade 2 ligament tear, the performance looks completely different. Every step sends sharp pain through the joint. Every sudden push feels like pressure on broken glass. Each serve and return sends vibrations through damaged tissue. Despite that, she never called for a medical timeout, never dramatized her condition, and never tried to gain an advantage through sympathy. She simply continued competing point after point. She chased shots that seemed unreachable under the circumstances and fought through rallies she had no physical right to survive because she understood what this tournament represented for her country and her supporters. She knew that withdrawing would devastate many fans who had waited years to see a major women's tennis event at home, so she accepted personal physical risk rather than emotional disappointment for others. When you look back at the match with that knowledge, the interpretation changes completely. Those missed shots were not careless errors, they were near miracles considering her condition. Tight straight-set scoreline against a proven, top-level opponent becomes evidence of extraordinary ability and determination rather than proof of failure. Taking a player of Osorio's caliber to competitive sets, while severely limited physically, is in itself an elite-level performance. Even Osorio appeared to recognize it. At the net, she held Alex's hand longer than usual and spoke to her with visible respect, acknowledging the limp and expressing disbelief that she competed in that state. In her own interview afterward, she described Alex as a fierce competitor and predicted a strong future for her in the sport. The broader tennis world is still watching and waiting because her long-term trajectory remains bright. Major tournaments and big stages are still ahead of her. When she eventually reaches the highest milestones of her career, many people will likely look back at this match not as a simple loss, but as the moment her championship character was forged under pressure and pain.